Hi all. I want to talk today with someone that was the first one to tell me about it some months ago. The new thing that I've learned this week, and possibly for me the most important news of the week, that is these interactive rights that La Liga did with Play Anywhere. And just to go to the point, let me introduce to you Pete Scott. And I don't know if he needs an introduction, but we'll talk about Pete later. Let's talk about what do you mean by interactive rights?
Yeah, I mean, Carlos, always a pleasure hanging out with you. So I appreciate the invite. Listen, I think the future of how people are going to watch content, they're going to be able to watch something on the screen and choose how they want to participate with that content, whether they want to buy something on the screen, whether they want to interact and watch content with their friends. And that interactivity needs to have some kind of business layer, some kind of ability to generate revenue for the people that are interacting. And so what our platform does is it sits behind the scenes, collecting any associated fees with that type of interactivity, and then sharing those funds back with the people who own the screen. A lot of consumers don't know that when they're on a particular screen, a phone, a connected TV, a web browser, that there are multiple constituents that own that screen. And in order for interactivity, which is going to be a form of a version of how people watch content, whether that be sports or entertainment, they're going to basically be interacting some way with the screen to get more information about an actor, to find out more about the swimsuit that the woman is wearing on Love Island, or in some cases, maybe make a wager on a particular game. And all we're doing is we're helping consolidate all those wonderful people that own the screen and facilitating a transaction so that we can basically collect associated fees, whether that be an affiliate fee for a blouse or a shirt that you would receive for Amazon for making that purchase happen on Amazon, to interactive ads where different moments in the game are sponsored by advertisers. You're collecting all these associated affiliate fees, and then we're just going to sit in the background and basically analyze all of those different transactions and collect first-party data on behalf of the people who own the screen, and then basically send and remunerate the folks that own that screen. So I think it's a big deal because I think interactive TV has always been at a standstill. I've been in this wonderful business for almost 30 years, and interactive TV has been something that people want to do, but I think the business model and figuring out a way that everybody benefits, not including the fan and user at home, to the folks that own the screen. How do we sort of unlock those rights? How do we make something available for users if they want to do a particular action on the screen, that we can help facilitate that? So this announcement was big. I mean, La Liga is a worldwide brand. We did the press release in 5 different languages. You know, they're in multiple continents around the world. So for us, it was an honor really to work with them to get this deal done. But I think it's bigger than just La Liga. It's facilitating the business model around interactivity that is being nourished and implemented today, you know, on TikTok and Instagram, where a younger generation, or even myself, you see something on Instagram that's tailored for you, or TikTok, and you make the purchase. And with 1 to 4 or 5 clicks, you can buy that product. I think what we're doing is we're basically moving that behavior that is already happening today onto multiple screens and facilitating the business transaction that happens behind it. So it's a different approach. We want to work with as many interactive overlay companies that there are. You know, we're just going to sit in the background and help sort of collect and remunerate everybody who owns a screen. So we think this is going to be one way that people will watch content, and we think we're uniquely positioned with IP and patents to sort of facilitate this for not just sports, but unscripted television too, where you're watching Love Island and you want to buy that swimsuit, or you're watching Anthony Bourdain and he's touring Italy and he's staying at a beautiful, Airbnb or a villa, and you want more information about it, or you want to book a reservation there, or the wine that he's drinking, et cetera, et cetera. So that's in a nutshell what we've done, and we've illuminated to people who own content around the world that this is a new rights category that they should be thinking about for their own content?
So yeah, I think it's pretty. I remember you told me, if I can say, a bit in stealth mode, because exactly you're trying to create, through obviously technology enablement, but especially you're trying to create a new rights category, basically. That, and also I think we have seen companies, and I've experienced myself, creating interactive layers on top of video, but that's a mean for you. It's not the end. You're trying to enable the monetization of those experiences, basically, not only the consumption, but the monetization in a standardized way, because I think you have a platform. And on the other end, you're trying to give, if you want, a business framework around it that is the rights model. Basically, can you go a bit, whatever is public, whatever you can share, how does the deal work? So what are you allowed, or what is La Liga allowed? How does it work a bit more in detail?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we did is we identified what we thought and felt were interactive rights. So any manipulation of the IP that La Liga owns, so whether that's live video or video highlights, that's their essence, that's their IP, that's the thing that they sell to broadcasters, to data aggregators like a Sports Radar or a Genius. And we basically said, look, we think there's a rights category that hasn't been identified yet. And that's everything from live video, squeeze backs, L frames, where there's not just information, but transactional value of what's happening around that IP. So because La Liga owns their IP, this is new revenue that they will unlock for their rights holders to basically do things around their IP that otherwise they, quite frankly, have not thought of, or basically know that it's going on, but they didn't think they had a way that they could control it and unlock it for their broadcast partners. So again, I think for us, we see trends, again, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or people even playing video games. You know, I've shared this story a ton where my daughter is watching an old episode of Gossip Girl and she sees a black cocktail dress, you know, on the screen while she's watching it on Netflix or Amazon, or and she wants to buy that cocktail dress or get more information about that cocktail dress. And so how do we, as an industry around interactivity, make it very easy for my daughter to get more information about the cocktail dress, to quickly give her a couple of options of where she could buy that cocktail dress, and then more importantly, a seamless way, basically, you know, 2 to 3 clicks for her to buy that dress if she wants to. And I think that's another void that we've noticed, that there's all this interactivity happening around the world in multiple languages around multiple types of content, whether it be quizzes, whether it be, you know, purchases of products. And there hasn't been sort of a group of people that are now, you know, making the analysis around this, and what are the habits and what are people doing, and how do we sort of help everybody make this a clean and easy experience. And if you want to do it, you can, but more importantly, if you don't want to, you control how you control the versioning of the screen, the content you're watching. And I think that's another important thing about this. I think leagues like La Liga, content companies, want to basically put a buffet of interactivity actions in front of them, and then make them, as a fan, to choose a normal feed and sit back and watch and don't do anything. But if you want to experiment or play around with different scenarios, watching with friends, or wanting to buy that jersey when a goal gets scored, or, you know, enhanced different watching with influencers, it's happening. So I think that's also a really important thing, is versioning. I can create the version of the feed, personalize it to me that I want to do, and I think we're seeing that as well. So I think for us, having La Liga sort of know that this is where part of the viewing experience is going in the future, you know, they wanted to be part of that, and they wanted us, you know, it's a lot of work. You got to basically connect all these APIs from e-commerce stores, from ad engines, you know, from potentially sports books, and, you know, that's a lot of work. And so that's what we're doing. We're sort of showing up and saying, we have all these APIs connected into one sort of platform that everybody can access.
And so that's perfect, because my next question is like the perfect sequitur to what you said. So clearly you have the platform to connect whatever experience, transactional experience that makes sense. But take a La Liga as an example, and you go to a territory. Who's putting together, and who are the people around you? So it's you and La Liga, it's not enough. The fans, fine, it's not enough. You need brands, you need sport books. So are you also actively basically putting together, basically the content for the transaction interaction, or that's something in partnership with your, what you call La Liga client, partner? I think a partner in this case.
Yeah, more a partner. A partner. Yeah.
So who's doing that? Because it's like saying, oh, we want to do AVOD. Yeah, okay. Where is who are the advertisement? We have the ad serving platform. We have this, but yeah, where is the other people coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like we're bringing everybody in the kitchen to create a great meal, and we are talking to the books to get their ingredients, their APIs. We're talking to affiliates, e-commerce stores that have beautiful merchandise, and we want them to bring their ingredients. And then for advertisers, either we can bring those advertisers, or the rights holders who will own the inventory around these interactive experiences can bring their advertisers to the table. So we're sort of getting together in a kitchen, and we're facilitating all these raw materials to come together to create this experience. And the fourth partner is the interactive overlay company, right? So we have really nice relationships with Ease Live. We're working with others like a Monte Rosa, a Sports Buff, who are out in this space and doing interactive overlays to facilitate the ease of use of doing this interactivity. So we will work with them as well, where if a particular vendor has a predisposed vendor that they love the way they do the interactions and make it easy, we can work with them as well. So really that analogy of bringing multiple people into the kitchen to say, look, we can bring all these digital raw materials together, create these relationships together to really create a meal that a user can go to that buffet and choose what he or she wants based on the things we built together. So that's probably the best analogy I can give you.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I'm happy that you mentioned all people and company I like too. So that was a good example.
I mean, I think,
by the way,
when I was, what I was going to say was, when I was at Turner, and I had such a great career, and we could talk about that a little later, but one of the things that, Mike Wise, a great guy who's now CTO of Universal, he was brought in to basically bring, these MVPDs in the States, those are the big cable companies, and create a relationship between the MVPDs and the publishers. And it was always a pretty cantankerous experience because you're asking one for more money for the programming. So they came up with a really great idea from a guy at the time called Andy Heller, where let's create a credentialing system that basically brings these very sort of, disparate groups that don't like to talk to each other that much. And they created Adobe Pass in 2012. And I give him and Andy so much credit because it allowed people to come together and agree that if we can create a credentialing system that allows a user to basically take CNN off the set-top box and put it in their pocket by just putting in a credential that says, I have an MVP subscription, that there's value that gets created on all sides, and that's what Adobe Pass and TV Everywhere ended up being in our business. This ability to create this platform where sort of everybody wins, right? And you have to sort of, like every relationship, you have to compromise and figure out, okay, if I do this, is this going to help grow the pie? Is this going to make a more interesting relationship for the consumer? And I think really ultimately my goal is really to make this the choice of the consumer, what he or she wants to be able to do. And we know there are patterns where people are watching a movie and they're going deep into IMDb, or, they are seeing that black cocktail dress, et cetera. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
me.
I mean, I think we all do it. And again, and I think we do it. And I think what we're trying to do is work with the best in the world that make those transactions super easy and fun to do, and that it just becomes a natural experience. I want more information, but I want it very easy. And I think, quite honestly, that will be the test. Is it the CTV company that owns the, the software on the TV that you can hit a button and that becomes an overlay? Is it the OTT company or vendor that's basically facilitating this. One of the things that we haven't shared with you is, I'm a huge fan, like you, of some of the technology vendors that are out there in the world doing really, really, really good work. And a lot of times they're paid a SaaS fee, in all their different work scenarios, which has been traditional. What we're saying is if, we work with a overlay company, we work with an OTT company, we work with a low latency video solution that we're starting to look at, we want them to be compensated as well. So when you create a clearinghouse that collects money, you can make them part of the revenue stream as well. So the nice thing about Play Anywhere is we don't charge to set it up. We create the mechanism to allow these interactions to happen and create revenue, but we will share it with strategic technical partners, which we're seeing a lot of interest from them, right? Because there's many OTT companies that you and I have worked with. There's many great vendors out there that never get to see any part of the rev share of a transaction that happens. So that was really important to myself and my co-founders, Yakov and Boaz Ben Yakov, that we sort of pay attention to those great vendors that in the past would never get a rev share, but they're also included this. So that's the beauty of the clearinghouse. You can determine, from the IP rights holder, how the money gets shared and what's the percentages that get shared.
So you basically have created a multidimensional marketplace. So It's not only the concept. So there is a lot of innovation. It's maybe the I don't want to say it's the least innovative thing is the overlay, but sorry, the fact that interactive, as you said, it's some like years that we are trying to do that. On the other end is the concept of rights and not only the business model, but also the platform that supports that is an innovative, I would call it multidimensional marketplace without being too buzzwordy, I think. And you mentioned the thing that we didn't mention, to be honest, until now, if not scarcely. This is not pitscott.com, right? This is a company, a startup. Tell me a bit more about the company behind it.
Yeah. So what was important to me when I had this great job at Warner Brothers Discovery was I had this great job of running emerging media and innovation. And I was the guy that would go forage out in the world, and I would go see what trends are doing, and then make sure, how do I match the technology or the vendor with the trends that are happening, right? And so we opened an office in Israel and ran called the Bridge Program, partnered with Coke and Walmart and Mercedes. And we would arrive into Tel Aviv in our office run by a fantastic guy named Gabby Zertok. And the idea was to see what the trends are doing, whether that be AI, machine learning, ad tech, video compression, and put the word on the street that we as big sort of companies were interested in this technology and please come. So we created this commercialization program, very successful for 6 years. It's such a treat. And to be honest with you, it sort of allowed me to create some really valuable and wonderful relationships with people in Israel to this day, which I'm so really thankful that people inside the company viewed that was a place where so much innovation was happening, and we just go there with our butterfly net and bring them back to the United States and run POCs and create licensing arrangements, and that would be helpful for those startups. And one of the startups that we found there was a company called Catch Media that was doing a lot of this clearinghouse and recommendation technology in India. And sometimes people in the States, they don't realize how big India is, and just the amount of content and eyeballs that are watching content. And so this recommendation, Aaron Posner, great chief product officer for us, was working with multiple newspapers and OTT companies to facilitate this process, this engine that is the basis of Play Anywhere. And this engine was doing multiple millions and millions of transactions around recommendations and millions of transactions around a clearinghouse. So when you're trying to prove to people in a company, is this live? Is it working? That was really, really important to me. So that essence of the recommendation. So when someone is interacting and I start to get a pattern of what he or she is doing, I can personalize the content to them, whether that be a shirt, a blouse, a type of ad that I know that person might be interested in, or a particularly waging scenario where they may want to make a wager on. So that it was that engine that is the engine and component of Play Anywhere. And that was really, really important to me. There's some great patents around that technology that allow us to collect and remunerate back out. So again, Warner Brothers is very, very, it was just a great company, and I loved working there and had just unbelievable relationships with people. They allowed us to build this out and then to spin it out in this scenario. And then, hopefully we'll be on HBO Max. Hopefully we'll be working on a lot of their unscripted content to allow someone who sees something on a particular show, to make that purchase. So again, I think there's a lot of work to be done to basically grab all these disparate APIs and normalize them and then make it sort of timely transaction. And we're just excited that La Liga chose us to want to go do that with them. And, we've started to, we did some demos in Indonesia towards the end of last year, and the season of this year, excuse me. The season just ended in May, June, and the new season will start in August. So you'll see multiple broadcasters in August for the 2023-24 season start to see this in different forms. It could be an alternative feed. It could be, on OTT. So we're working with all those different companies. And then we're going to have a couple announcements, which we're excited about, with other leagues and advertisers around the world as well. Because the key is how do we empower and unlock these rights to create, a business model and hopefully a valuable, exchange with the audience. If they want to do this and it's seamless and it's adding value to while they're watching their favorite match or their favorite show, that's really, really important to me and the team.
And how do you think this works on big screens?
Yeah, I think on CTVs, it's a combination. If it's a native app on that screen, so it's an app that you built Android TV, we can put our SDK in the Android TV app. If it's sort of wider and the CTV company like a Samsung or an LG or Hisense through Vidya is creating, interactivity inside the experience itself, maybe through a fast channel, we can facilitate that. So it's really wherever the firmware and the engagement of the audience goes, we want our SDK to travel with wherever that experience is initiated.
No,
so we're talking to all of them, basically. Yeah, we're talking to all of them.
So,
because I think they see it, right? The CTV, you and I, again, have been doing this for a long time, where a lot of people didn't even know their TV was connected to the internet and they didn't realize. And now what's happening with the CTV experience, and I give all the manufacturers a lot of credit, is that CTV is now becoming such a powerful, whether you want to see beautiful pictures of a meadow when you wake up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, or you want to get your news, or they're becoming very big center hubs of people's homes because they are connected to the internet and they could bring the internet to you. And I think if we could figure out a way where, again, it's very seamless, easy transaction, it's sort of QVC has been doing this for years and years. Amazon Live, my good friend Wayne Purvo runs Amazon Live. And, you're seeing this trend where people want to engage and connect and hopefully transact. And if that works and we can help facilitate that, we want to do that.
Absolutely. So, I see that you may be busy because there is a lot of, the power of this is that it has many parts. And rephrasing what I said before, it's a multidimensional marketplace, but who helps increase the value of the marketplace, even technically, is involved in the remuneration, which is, as you said, something new. On the other end, you really need to put, it's a village that needs to get together to grow this and together. I think it's a great vision, and it's a lot more than, I have a new product idea or something like that. It's a lot more than that, really.
Yeah, no, we're really excited. And again, I think it always comes down to the customer and what's the value exchange we can create for he or she that want to potentially do this and create their own version of the way they want to watch something. And if there's the standard, I just want to sit back and watch, to, sort of interacting and getting more content. And if we're seeing those trends happen on other platforms, how do we sort of make that as part of another way that you can watch, your favorite show or favorite sporting event?
And I think that's cool. And I'm sure this won't be the first interview you have on these new things. If you haven't already had, I think I just jumped on it because I know you decently well from the last time we met. I thought he was in London at IC in a big cafeteria, and you already explained the advancement of this. But so who, where, and what is Pete Scott doing in this new phase in his career? Seems enjoying life, and but I don't want to anticipate.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think for all of us, we have different chapters in our careers. And I was really fortunate in 1989 to drive down to Atlanta after I got a job with CNN. And in those days, they were calling it the Chicken Noodle Network. And there weren't a lot of people, and they had to go to college campuses like Boston University, where I went to recruit people because it was such a new idea. You know, Ted Turner, on so many levels, is such a wonderful person and saw and had a vision of where news could go. And then the Gulf War broke out in 1990, and it was there that, you know, the network took off. And sort of what we take for granted today, the ability to basically send news anywhere in the world and to feel like you're there, we sort of take for granted. And so I got to, with a lot of unbelievable great people, ride along with that vision at CNN and travel the world and, you know, edit and sound tech and then shoot just a little bit. But the idea was, you know, how do you go to these places in the world and tell a story? And then how do you get people to understand that we're all so much alike on so many different ways? And, you know, coming back from Sarajevo in 93 and, you know, worrying about maybe something that doesn't work in my house after spending, you know, 2 months driving an armored car, just as a 21-year-old, you learn so much about life and what was important. And then I was fortunate enough to move into sports. You know, someone took a chance on me, a really nice guy named Michael Jackson. You know, you always remember those people that were pivotal in your life that allowed you to go down another door. And I went into sports and was a production manager and helped sort of configure remote productions all around the world, and just a fantastic experience. And I think the key was, like any job, if you can evolve with the company. So if you have an idea and you want to evolve, you know, and you want to try things differently, and then use that knowledge to further sort of help everybody understand what's going on, that was super helpful. I got really lucky. A colleague of mine, Danny Greenberg, who I worked with at CNN, went out to Los Angeles to run Fox Sports, and he wanted sort of a person on the broadcast side. So I went out to LA and worked on the Pico lot and some fabulous people there. And again, just understanding where the transition of IP and where video is going in the streaming world. So got to work with some great people who are still in the business, you know, at Fox Sports, to learn about where digital was going, and sort of creating myself as a hybrid. Again, always sort of looking about where the future is going and where you can have that intellectual curiosity to kind of look at new technologies and trends. And then lucky enough to come back to Atlanta, Mark Lazarus and Drew Reifenberger had this unbelievable concept about helping leagues sort of run and operate their websites, sort of before Delta Tray, where you came from, where can we leverage a lot of things we built for CNN.com to help leagues digitally transform themselves? And this was like 2001. And so, you know, that was another great experience where, again, the company allowing me to grow and do things. And then ran a whole bunch of websites, Ryder Cup, PGA Championship, you know, working with the NBA to create a partnership with the NBA JV with a lot of my colleagues, operating and managing March Madness, and sort of just building that muscle inside of large media business to say that digital was important. This is where the trends were going. So I think that's where I am today, right? I sort of see where things are going on interactivity and where we're going to help facilitate that. So again, that intellectual curiosity and trying to stay relevant in every marketplace. I'm even, you know, taking a class from University of Texas on AI and machine learning right now, just because, you know, you and I are those connectors, right? We sort of say, okay, this is where the trend we're seeing. This is the technology that we think can basically help you democratize that information, and then, you know, sort of give it out to as many people that you know. And then what's awesome about that is, you know, I was blessed to have this massive whiteboard, and people would come into my office all the time and they would be confused about a concept or how things worked. And then if you were able to paint them in a way that they understood, their ideas were so great that something that you and I would never be able to think about, just because we opened and unlocked that opportunity for them to understand something better. So yeah, I think I'm living a great life, working with a great team. One day I'd love to, even teach, because it's so comfortable to me, because I've sort of done it like you, teaching, whether it was you, IOC, and these massive companies, about where the future was and how Delta Tray can help them evolve and pay attention. And I think when my favorite thing I have to say is when you do take the risk of the chance to introduce new technology to something, or a new vendor, and you sort of painted the picture of where it can go, you sort of given someone else the gift, and they've run with it, and they've created things that, quite frankly, I just would never have thought of. That's, for me, what I love is to make it, here's the thing, here's how it can maybe help you. This is some of the ideas I have. And, they run with it, and they create these unbelievable experiences. That's the best part of the job by far.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sure. I think the good about what you're doing, and I was thinking you were in Sarajevo the year after I started building website for sports. So I think you had a better experience in terms of life. I was more into what I call the useless business we are in, even if at the end I realized that in the end it is useless compared to many jobs that are more connected to you, and if you want help and things like that. But in the end, a lot of people enjoy moments of their life through what we enable. We're not athletes, we're not storytellers per se, we are, but in a B2B sense, maybe more. But in the end, it's not that bad. So I felt a bit guilty that you told me you were in Sarajevo when I was coding websites, but still there is a commonality.
Yeah, but what's really interesting about that point was, I think, like you get it too, is if you come from the world of broadcasting, and then you're trying to transform that media into something new in the future, you have to understand the legacy. Because if you don't understand the legacy and how that system works, and how you can be in that system and say, okay, I know how this works here, I know the future's here, how do I basically slowly bring them along to basically make them feel comfortable, not threatened? How do you balance the egos and the current revenue systems that are making this world work to take a chance? And I think that's and again, you were very good with that at Delta Tray as well, where how do you make them feel comfortable that because you have this experience from a past sort of career that understands the nuances, that you could be trusted. Trusted is the key of having that hybrid knowledge to bring from one legacy world to the future. And, these are, this is transformational in every industry, whether it be oil and gas, whether it be automotive. You have to have these special evangelizers that sort of get the past, but also want to get to the future, and are those sort of, people. And those are my, those are the books I read. Those are what are the tricks, what are the skills that you're trying to sort of help people understand and get to the next of where the ball or the hockey puck is going.
Yeah. And so when are you coming? So where are you now? Very quickly, it seems a nice place.
So
or at least mountains or nature.
Yeah. So I have a beautiful family. I have 2 girls, and then I have a beautiful extended family. So my brother lives in Driggs, Idaho, which is this great, fabulous place that overlooks the Tetons in front of me, and wide space, huge alfalfa and potato fields, and just a great place to sort of recharge before we engage, because it's going to happen where it's going to require some face-to-face meetings, not Zoom meetings, and you want to make everybody feel comfortable, because I think we are sort of doing stuff with multiple leagues, and sort of saying, look, we think this is where it's going. We think we have a platform that can enable all these things to happen, and we're excited to do that. So, a little respite with the family here, and it's you do. I think when you can, every once in a while, I would encourage everybody to take a week off and try to turn everything off. Read, walk, exercise, spend time with family, eat good food, drink good wine. I think it just revives you. It just revives you, and it makes you sort of.
If a guy with a scarf doesn't call you for a call in the morning to bother you during holidays.
Yeah, but for you, but I'm not going to embarrass you. But for you, I do it because I think, look, you have a following in an interesting, tribe that really likes what you're doing and likes what you're talking about, and you're trying to bring interesting people into a conversation that will empower them with new and fresh perspectives and information that not a lot of people get to do. So they know, hopefully, what goes out, people are drinking a nice cup of hot coffee, and they're sort of getting their day started, and they're motivated with their conversation in one way or another to figure out how we make the customer value exchange better. How do we basically allow people to control the experience they want when they're interacting with their favorite content? And how can we do that? So that's the greatest part about my job. I'm just basically trying to figure that out.
Yeah. What is the event where we can meet on one end, or people can meet you, especially if we're talking about Europe? You come into Sports Pro, TT, Sportel, IBC.
I mean, I think you just hit them all on the head. I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, really, IBC for sure. I'll be in Barcelona. Barcelona has a great, the folks that I love, really enjoy working with is SBC, the sports betting conferences where they have around the world. And so I'll be going to Barcelona in September. I was just in one in Toronto, and it's just awesome that you get to meet all these interesting people, and they're trying to engage their fandoms in one way or the other. I'll probably be going back to a real screen event, which is around reality TV. And it's a fascinating event where a lot of the buyers and the sellers get together, and sort of come up with show ideas, and then they pitch the ideas. Yeah. But again, like there's interactive rights, which everybody understands in sports. No one's really thought about the idea of interactive rights inside of unscripted television. And so again, you sort of come in and you sort of are illuminating this concept of interactive television and the monetization of that, and how if we can sell easily that pillow, that couch, that beautiful painting, and how people can get more information about it and really make that easy for people to do that, I think you're just going to see more connections happening and more validation of, of things. So I'll be, running all over the place. So just looking forward to it. And I think I'll be in Spain in the fall for the startup of the season, just to make sure everything goes smoothly there as well. And then we have some other clients that we're talking to that hopefully we'll be able to make some announcements soon that are, IP holders that want to sort of test the water, right? Let's go kind of walk out into the water and test this theory, and let's see if people want to interact, and how do we make it easy for them? And that part's going to be fun to kind of figure out that perfect puzzle. How does that, engagement work? How do we make it easy for them to spontaneously choose and do something? And I think that's going to be the magic too, if we can help facilitate that, because we're sort of the back end of the store, but we really got to make sure that people will walk into the store, right? So how do we work with all those great interactive providers? How do we work with research companies to illuminate the trends and what works and what doesn't, and really create, some inertia and education about this? So that part's going to be fun. Yeah,
absolutely. So let's meet soon. Thank you for taking the time, even if it's early morning, and you will enjoy a great day with the family.
Yeah.
Choppy, thank you so much.
Choppy.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye.